Friends, the recent fiasco in space, where the US actually accused Russia of demolishing their lower Earth orbit satellite, which created a lot of debris, and because of that, the space station had to be moved, and also there was a life-threatening situation created for the astronauts living inside the International Space Station. So, considering all this, where the India comes in, I think India is also creating news. In fact, the India's premium space agency called ISRO also said that they are working on something which is very groundbreaking, and this is something that they want to bring to the world, where they are saying that they are working on something which is coming out of the science fiction, sort of. It is coming out as if it is coming out of a science fiction movie. Now, number one development or R&D the ISRO is doing is about the spacecrafts which are going into space, and when they are getting launched, there are a lot of boosters which are attached to it, and when they fall, they are made of steel or some other material, and they need to be salvaged. If they are not able to they are not being salvaged, then they will create the pollution or the environmental hazard. And in case if the components of these rockets go up to the space and stay there, then they will create a debris situation. So I think the important aspect for ISRO to do research is that these objects which are used as a booster rocket or other ancillary units in the spacecraft will get into self-destruct mode. They will be made of material which will just dissolve by itself and not create any hazard either in outer space or on Earth. Number two is the issue related to the satellites. Satellites have certain components fitted on board, and the satellites usually comes with a expiry date. So there is a life of a satellite, and up to those many years satellite will function. After that, either the technology changes, that means the satellite has become obsolete, or the satellite has stopped functioning, so it is no longer useful. So I think in either of these cases, the satellite will be obsolete, not useful for humans, and therefore the satellite either has to be brought back or it has to be destroyed. So far nobody has thought about it, but there will be a self-destruct button in the satellite which will be fitted in future, and ISRO is coming up with a technology where the old satellites will be able to burn up in outer space without creating any debris of any sort. It will not be falling on Earth also, and it will just burn up and it will be rendered harmless to and not create any debris. So this is the second thing that the ISRO is working on, sort of a self-destruct button which can be pressed in the control unit here down on Earth, and the satellite will then burn up in the orbit. The third one is that when the aircrafts are fired, there are a lot of vibration, there are a lot of anti-gravity forces, because of which the material itself are sometimes fail, of which these bodies are made. So ISRO is actually working on very, very groundbreaking research where the material of these structures which are being sent into space will have the ability to self-heal in flight, so that some of these catastrophes can be avoided in space, or any failure that can be avoided during the launch. So these are certain things which ISRO is working on, which is very, very groundbreaking and something which is coming from the future. This is something which is required, and ISRO is doing this research straight out of a science fiction book or a movie. Friends, do write in your comments about these new R&D which ISRO is doing. Let me know your thoughts, and I will respond to you. I will say goodbye in this video, but only to catch you in the next one.
Hello, friends. This is Chandrakant from Akulmac Technologies, and welcome to Legal Matters. Friends, as you know, in this series, we actually call expert and we discuss the legal matters which affects the people by and large in our daily day-to-day life. And today, without further ado, let me present Mr. Jeet Bhatt to you. Jeet is a very well-known lawyer practicing in Ahmedabad High Court, and he joins us from Ahmedabad. Jeet, welcome to Legal Matters.
Thank you very much, Chandrakant, for introducing me and using such uh, kind words. It's my pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward for the discussion on legal matters.
It is our pleasure, Jeet. In fact, what I want to discuss with you today is something related to your profession. And, if we commit something wrong, general public, then we have to go to the court and fight the case. At the same time, when we are fighting our case, we have to, contract a lawyer who can represent us in a proper way in the court. So, this discussion today is about related to whether a lawyer conduct or lawyers, approach towards your case and about you, is it within the purview of professionalism or is it outside the purview of professionalism?
Yes, Chandrakant, it's a very important question, and I think it is the question that is being asked and raised around law schools and even in societies in open discourses regarding the professional ethics of lawyers and the duties of lawyers towards client, and also whether a lawyer can refuse to defend an accused because the lawyer thinks that he has committed a serious offense or because of his moral principle. But basically, before starting, let me introduce you my profession, that is the legal profession. In fact, it is considered as one of the most noble professions in amongst all professions, and it is not considered as a business or a business activity. The difference between having a business and being in a profession is that in a business, people sell goods or buy services, but in this legal profession, the the persons involved use their knowledge and skills. So therefore, this is considered on a higher pedestal than other businesses. It is not a commercial activity, and it is one of the most oldest professions in the history of civilization. And certainly, it is a distinguished profession, and it carries a lot of responsibilities. And throughout history, if you see, lawyers have done and given great service to the society, considering our independence movement also having all legal luminaries in this during the freedom struggle. So certainly there is a huge responsibility on the lawyers, and they have to serve the society, which is the ultimate goal of this profession. And considering that, the after independence, the Advocates Act 1961 was enacted, and wherein professional ethics and code of conduct has been prescribed for the lawyers, wherein the lawyers not just have a duty towards the court, but they also have a duty towards their client. They also have a duty towards the opposing party. They also have a duty towards their other members of the legal profession. But basically, lawyers are the officers of the court, and they are considered to be the servant of justice. So that is their ultimate goal. They are above all the officers of the court of the on the administration of justice delivery system. They play a very important part, and therefore their primary duty is to be very fair and dignified towards the court, also not to impact the decision of a court by any unlawful or inappropriate means, and to use the best of their services and skills in order to benefit their clients. But they are also not servants of their clients, because they are not bound to say or do whatever their clients say, because they also owe a duty to the court first and then to their client. So these are the broad duties which a lawyer has towards the court. Then the duty towards his client is that once he accepts the brief, then he cannot withdraw from the action or engagement unless he has an appropriate cause to do so. He cannot accept and appear in a case in which he has reason to believe that he will be a witness, and he has a duty to make full disclosure against his connection with the parties or interest before the commencement of engagement. So that is, if he if he's in any ways related to the other side or to the opposite side, then he cannot take, because there's a conflict of interest. And so he has to make a full disclosure that there is no conflict. And then only if there's no conflict, he can take up the engagement or the brief. Then his duties are to have privileged communication, because the clients who are there to engage him, inform him, or give him the details, those are considered to be privileged communications, and that cannot be shared with anyone, not even to the court. Uh, so these are his basic duties towards his client, and then he also owes a duty towards the opponent, and he has to act responsibly towards his opponent, and he cannot negotiate or communicate in any way to the opposite party without his client's consent. And also the duty towards his colleague is that he cannot advertise, or he cannot solicit work directly or indirectly. And that is why in the legal profession in our country, it is not permitted to have advertisement boards or hoardings, or they cannot in any way try to solicit work directly or indirectly. So these are the broad duties of the lawyers towards the court, towards the his client, towards the opponent, and towards the other legal members of.
So, Jeet, you have put it very nicely, and you have actually given the definition and the boundaries of the legal profession very nicely, so that our viewers can know, what are the obligations of a lawyer when they engage with a lawyer. However, I must say that in reality, even lawyers are humans, and they are also affected by their personal lives, their ideological differences, and their political views. So, in those scenarios, what is in reality happens which should not happen? Do you have any opinion on that?
Well, yes, ultimately it depends on every individual, but the roles and responsibilities are clearly defined under the Code of Conduct and Ethics, which has been prescribed by the under the Advocates Act and by the Bar Council of India. So it is the duty of every lawyer to accept and act in accordance with such duties. But sometimes we see that it does not happen, and not every lawyer adheres to his professional ethics very strictly. But I think this is as it is a very noble profession. I think every advocate must act and are duty bound to adhere to these principles and ethics sincerely. And if they do so, then again, this legal profession will be considered to be one of the most, and it is, in fact, right now, it is considered to be a noble profession. But with respect to, as you say, asked whether the lawyer's morality, or the lawyer's belief that his client is accused, and can he refuse to appear, in that respect, I would like to just point your attention to the one of the rules of ethics, which provide that an advocate is bound to accept any brief in the court or tribunal, or before any other authorities, in or before which he proposes to practice, at a fee consistent with his standing at the bar. So there is a duty uh, specifically prescribed under the Code of Ethics, where an advocate is bound to accept a brief where he practices. So a lawyer cannot refuse to defend a accused person on the ground that he thinks that he is guilty, or he might be guilty of committing such an offense, which might be a heinous offense, which might be related to rape or murder, or any other serious offense like narcotics, or even terrorist activity. So that is provided under the Code of Ethics, and a lawyer is duty bound. And if you see historically, all great lawyers on criminal sides have never refused to accept a brief, only because they believe that their clients have committed the offense. So
So,
even
Jeet,
yes.
I have a question on this aspect. See, you say that the lawyer should not look at should look at the merits of the case, and then look it from the legal standpoint, and not really bother about what is the outcome. However, we have seen many times. In fact, I'm going to quote certain incident which we have all heard in public domain. Things like cases related to Kasab, where the lawyer was not available. There was no lawyer willing to take his case. Then there were other cases also. There was a case where a small child was murdered in a school in Delhi, and then the bar council had a divide, and there are a lot of politics there, and what I'm talking about is that there were two set of lawyer. One was saying that hey, we should fight this case, others were saying we will not fight this case. So this is not the code of conduct as you have described today, and as we know, for lawyers they cannot refuse a client basically. Yet we are hearing this in the public domain quite a few times.
Yes, Chandrakant, you are right. There have been several such instances, specifically starting from Kasab. Uh, well, in Kasab's case, ultimately the government had to grant him access to a lawyer, and he was represented, though after much, uh, because the lawyer who was representing him was given death threats, and therefore he had to be provided security. But ultimately, he was provided, because the reason being that in a democratic setup, the right, every individual has a right to a fair trial, and a fair trial is not possible unless you have a defense counsel representing you. And it is every citizen's fundamental right to access to justice, and also the right to have a counsel of his own choice, that is provided under the constitution as a fundamental right under article 22. And therefore no person can be denied, and if such person is denied this right to have a counsel, the fair trial itself is denied, and that can lead to a travesty of justice. So to avoid this, the legal profession prescribes for this code of conduct, wherein a lawyer is bound to accept a brief, and second, he cannot decide on whether his client is guilty or innocent, because that question is before the judge, and the judge has to decide on the basis of the legal evidence which is available and produced by the prosecution, that whether he is guilty or innocent. The lawyer should not take on the responsibility of a judge and decide before the judge pronounces whether he is guilty or innocent. So that is the responsibility of the judge and not of the lawyer. Second, there is a presumption in our legal system that every person accused is presumed to be innocent until proven guilty. And this is the cardinal principle of our criminal justice system. And based on this principle, every person, if is presumed to be innocent, then the lawyer should not jump upon and come to the conclusion that he appears to be guilty and therefore refuse his brief. But there's a slight exception to this, when the when the client would confess that I have committed this offense. But until that confession comes before the client, the lawyer must not presume that he is actually guilty and refuse this brief. So, so that is the basic right of every individual, and every individual is entitled to the access to counsel and access to justice. So therefore, lawyers should not refuse. Now, the second question: if what happens if a client confesses before the lawyer that yes, I have committed this offense. In such circumstances, the lawyer can refuse if he has not taken up the case. So before taking up the case, the lawyer can say that because of your confession, I think this is morally incorrect. And since you have confessed that you have committed this offense, I don't think it right to take up your case. On that ground, the lawyer is justified to refuse. But if the lawyer, having taken up the case, and thereafter the client confesses that yes, I have committed this offense, then the lawyer should not refuse to carry on with his engagement in that case, and cannot refuse, because that refusal will amount to prejudicing his case before the court, and that a lawyer is not entitled to do. So therefore there's a distinction, that if before taking up the case the lawyer does not want to take up because the client has confessed, then he is entitled. But after taking up the case, the lawyer cannot refuse to carry on with the trial on the ground that he is aware that. But then the role of the lawyer is also towards the court. There also the lawyer will have to be very careful, because he cannot permit the client to produce any false evidence. That cannot be done. So So if that is done, then he can inform his client that I will not be a party to leading any false evidence before the court. But if he is aware, then he should tell his client not to produce any false or misleading evidence in order to mislead the court.
Jeet, we have discussed a lot about code of conduct for the lawyers, which have been set in the legal system. However, the lawyers operate in a bar council. You know that every bar council has every large court or high court has a bar council, and sometimes the decisions are sometimes political or apolitical. It depends on the situation. So, do you have an opinion about the functioning of the bar council?
As you earlier asked, that bar associations have passed resolutions asking its members not to appear for any accused. But with respect to those resolutions, the Supreme Court has pronounced a judgment in 2010 in the matter of A.S. Muhammad Rafi versus State of Tamil Nadu, wherein the Supreme Court has said, and I quote, that in our opinion, such resolutions are wholly illegal, against all traditions of the bar, and against professional ethics. Every person, however wicked, depraved, vile, degenerate, perverted, loathsome, vicious, or repulsive, he may be regarded by the society as a right to be defended in a court of law, and accordingly, it is the duty of the lawyer to defend him. These are the words of the Honorable Supreme Court in a matter where the some bar associations and district bar associations had passed resolutions asking its members not to appear for the accused person. So such types of resolutions are clearly in violation of the mandate of the Supreme Court's judgment, as well as against the principles of legal ethic, and also in violation of the fundamental rights of every citizen. So such resolutions should not be passed. In fact, the Supreme Court has dealt with this issue in detail, and it gives an historical example in this connection with regards to the trial of a famous jurist named Thomas Paine, was tried for treason, and a famous English lawyer was the Advocate General at that time of Prince of the uh, Wales area, Mr. Thomas Erskine, who was said that if you appear for this accused, then you will be dismissed from the office as Advocate General. But that lawyer, undeterred, accepted the brief and ultimately was dismissed from his office. And he, in his book, writes that, and I quote him, that from the moment that any advocate can be permitted to say that he will or will not stand between the crown and the subject arraigned in court where he daily sits to practice, from that moment the liberties of England are at an end. If the advocate refuses to defend from what he may think of the charge or of the defense, he assumes the character of the judge. Nay, he assumes it before the hour of the judgment, and in proportion to his rank and reputation, puts the heavy influence of perhaps a mistaken opinion into the scale against the accused, in whose favor the benevolent principles of English law make all assumptions. This practice has been accepted in India as well. And so, question a lawyer should always ask is not whether the client has committed the offense or not, but the question that he must ask to himself is whether the prosecution can prove beyond reasonable doubt the charges that has been leveled against him. So if that question is asked and the trial proceeds on that count, then lawyer should not refuse on the basis that he believes the accused to be guilty.
I think there is a lot of learning in today's discussion, Jeet. I think this discussion is very valuable for the viewers who are watching this program, and many people don't talk about professionalism in the legal world. But I think today's session is based on that, and I like to thank you from the bottom of my heart to bring this out very clearly that the legal profession is a very noble and very pious profession. And I think we should have faith. All of us have faith in this legal profession.
Absolutely, Chandrakant. In fact, it's my pleasure, and I'm happy that your viewers will find it informative and educational. So that is the whole purpose and idea of doing this interaction.
Certainly. So let me address the viewers. If you have any questions from Jeet or any other legal question, you can write it to us, and we can bring you either live in the show, or we can present your question and get an answer. So with that, I will end this discussion today. Thank you very much, Jeet, for joining us today. We will catch up again next Thursday.
Thank you very much, Chandrakant.
Bye-bye.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Akul Mac Live, and I'm Chandrakant. Most of us have gone through this horrible time during pandemic. In fact, some of us are still going, and I think it's a totally different experience. And therefore, we thought that we will talk about this today. To discuss this matter, I'll be joined by a very senior, very seasoned professional, Mr. Kevin Cotton. He is the CEO of Go Nomadic PT Limited, joining us from Singapore. And incidentally, he has also come out of a quarantine situation, a home isolation situation. So we will discuss more about it. We will know how the experience is. So let's welcome Kevin to the show. Hello, Kevin.
Hey, I love the drum roll. Thanks so much, Chandra. It's great to be back again on the show, and I'm very much looking forward to today because this is it's an interesting period that I came out today, especially.
Well, Kevin, you're looking good, even though your voice is slightly different. I think you're feeling better. I hope you don't have any fever or anything after the situation.
Yeah, no, I've actually had what I would call COVID light. And I've been very lucky, and I'm very grateful for having the vaccine. So, yeah, I mean, I just came out of the quarantine at 12 noon today, so I'm free to walk away from the room that I'm in. And in fact, I'm sitting in now. I've been sitting in for a week or 10 days. And yeah, I mean, I haven't had a lot of challenges. I lost the smell and I lost a little bit of taste, not so much. I didn't have a fever. And of course, you can hear my deep and raspy voice. And so this is, some people say, I have been telling me, my clients, I want you to keep that voice. It's very sexy. And I say, I'm not sure it's going to stay, but enjoy it while it can. So yeah, that's what I'm very lucky and I'm very grateful for that.
Well, Kevin, good to see you, hale and hearty. And why don't you share your experience, how you spent 10 days of home isolation, quarantine. What was your experience like?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we all share it in slightly differently. And a lot of people, and I completely honor the people that have had challenges, really severe challenges with COVID, and also those that have lost family members and people, and friends, etc. I mean, it is not so great. And I think that one of the things was that when I turned positive was like the startle, right? It's like, oh no, I have the mark. And I think that was the first turning point of, oh, I'm not infallible. I can actually get this virus. And so I think that what happened is that there took a few days for me to sort of figure out what was this, why was I in, how do I deal with being in a home with two other people that are also ended up having to stay very locked away from me. And we have to just text each other to say, I would need to go to the toilet, or I need to wash my hands, or something like this, or I need to get some water, or they would knock on the door and say, your food is ready. And, it became very strange and surreal in some ways. But what happened was that I decided to meditate a lot. I meditated 3 times a day to very high frequency meditational music. And I was recommended to do so. A variety of people that do meditation on a big level, and to drive, in many ways, drive the virus away from me so that I stay above it. And at the same time, I took a lot of time to just rest. And I took time I was working on a speech, which I did on Sunday. And so I slowly took my time to work on it and write it. And then I was also preparing for another speech for PayPal next week. And so I just slowly did this. And I loved the slowness because it allowed me to reflect an awful lot. And I began to reflect on what's important to me. What's important to my life, and who are the important people around me? I started to reflect on what is the business that I'm doing. And I began to realize that it started to shift. And the shift has been very much towards sustainability. And it's also that with this, that I realized that the nomadic mindset is, in actual fact, a very important process in understanding sustainability, because we have this incredibly narrow thinking a lot of the time. And the nomadic mindset allows you to the space and the interconnection with nature. And that is what has created this COVID, is our disconnection with nature. Is that it started, as we know, the viral spillover from animals to humans. And that's how it all came about. And so what does that mean if we back that up? It means that we are deforesting. We are using animals in the wrong way. We are getting too close to wild animals, and the spillover to domesticated animals and then to humans is becoming more and more interconnected. And as I was just reading an article 2 days ago from the UN, was this spillover is going to increase and increase, and these pandemics are going to get worse and worse if we do not stop this living the way we are. And that is tearing down forests, which is creating the climate change, which is creating biodiversity, which is creating all of these knock-on effects. And of course, the human is getting the spill of these viruses. And they're not going to be any easier, and it's going to cost more and more and more, and trillions of dollars. Whereas if we stop all of those other aspects, it's much less expensive, and we won't have to worry so much about the spillover. So it doesn't take a lot of brain cells to think about it. And so that's what part of this all sort of came about during this period. And I listened to a lot of classical music and a variety of inspirational music. And it was really a delightful time. And I just thought, I want more of this. And this has shifted me to start thinking about how I want my business to be, how I want my life to be. I don't want it to be rushing and tearing around. I want it to be sustainable. I want to think of nature. I want to think of humans. I want to think of, how we can succeed in a different way, not the bottom line on an ongoing basis, and not stakeholders and shareholders. And I don't want to think about that necessarily. I want to think about humanity within organizations and how we can do that. And not to say that I wasn't, but this is what has come out of this, which I believe I feel so much more buoyant, actually. And I have to say, much calmer. And because, a lot of the time I would look at social media. And also the other thing was I took myself off social media. I didn't even talk about the fact that I had COVID. I didn't want people to know. I didn't want to even have this interaction, because I just thought, no, I need to heal. And the other word that came up for me, the 2 words are healing and recovery. And recovery, one of the most important words that we can have in our well-being and mental health. You know how in really um, athletes. Athletes talk about the recovery is almost, if not more important than the actual training and actual competing, because the recovery, the body needs to recover. And then from the pushing that you've given it, and then it becomes stronger. And then you work harder and train more, and then you recover so that you have this back and forth. And you know what? COVID has shown us that we have to do this. We have to recover. And people say, oh no, we got to keep pushing. And that's where the problems are. We can't keep pushing. We're human beings. You know, we need this meditation. We need this reflection. We need this soulful time, you know? And that is one thing that has just really become so ingrained with me at the moment. And that's why I wanted to just voice that today, because this is what coming out has been for me. And it is like a coming out in some ways. And, you know, they advise you to stay longer in less social impact, social contact. And so I will for some days, just moving slowly into coming back. But that's what's really come about for me is these words: healing, recovery, sustainability, humanity, the well-being of the planet. All of these things have become so immense in my head and my heart. And I think that's one of the pieces that I keep forgetting. Someone told me, in actual fact, that the reason that you got COVID is because you needed this recovery and this healing. And, you know, depending on how you see things in the world, this has happened to me before, is that when I got to a certain state of stress and whichever in my body would start reacting, but I wasn't never listening until something hit me. It's like, you know, getting hit. You know, you have to have a big hit before you start to wake up. But why do we have to have the big hit before we wake up? You know, I'm sure you've had that experience and you've talked about that and heard people talk about that, Chandra. And so why do we have to have that? Why are we so stupid? Yeah.
Well, Kevin, I think you're raising very pertinent points. And in fact, everyone is affected by this and many other experiences. And the good thing is that we are live on all social media platforms, at least 5 or 6 right now. So if people who want to communicate with Kevin, they can write using the chat function and post their questions. Well, I think the big question now, from what you are telling me, is you raised this point about environment and friendliness among people, etc. But I think on the contrary, the world is moving totally different, you know. So very briefly, what is your message? Because we are live right now. What is your message to people, very briefly, before we move on to the next one, about fixing the environment and how to live in a harmony with the environment? What do you like to tell the people?
I just want to say that the most important thing, if we are going to survive as human beings, and I don't mean just us right now, depending on the age that we're in, but for the generations to come, and I think that's where we have to think about, is that it's about humanity. We need survival, and we need to think about the coming together, the interconnection of all of the ecosystems, and appreciating and honoring it, that they all give us something to survive and something to live with, instead of it just being us, being me, me. We cannot be this me. It is all interconnections for the wholeness. We just need to think of everything, the whole planet as one, the whole climate as one, nature, animals, us as one. And I believe that that is what's important, is we are one and interconnected beings with every ecosystem, and we must survive. And that's must survival. We must pay attention, deep attention.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for giving this important message. Hope people listen and understand But I think you mentioned about a very important point. One was that, hey, I am also affected by this, So unless you get it, you don't realize that, hey, you're not such a special person, you can get it. So the question that I want to ask you is, this pandemic is creating a new reality for everyone across the world, length and breadth, wherever you are, even in Antarctica, you can get COVID. What is the learning that people must have, or how they should change themselves to cope up with this new reality? What is your observation?
Yeah, I mean, we're all in this together. I mean, you cannot separate it. And so people, the naysayers say, oh, no about vaccination, or no, there's no climate change, or, I mean, I'm sorry, but that's nonsense. It's total nonsense. And until you get COVID, you don't realize the challenges. You hear from people that have been naysayers and gone partying just to get COVID and whichever, and then have just before they died said, it's a real thing. It's like, it can kill you. Absolutely. Anything can kill you. But the point here, I believe, is that, as I said before, is that we need to come together and understand that these types of viruses are going to increase if we do not change our way of living, our way of thinking, our way of commercializing, our way of abundance, of too many things, of materialism. All of these things we can have, but why do we need the massive amounts of it? We don't need it. And this is what is creating all of these other effects, because people then want more, spend more money, more. And we've created this monster. The monster has come back to haunt us. And the monster is just this one. So, let's look at it from a very wide perspective, as a nomad would. And that is that all interconnected pieces are real, that we are a mirror of nature. Nature is our mirror. And whatever happens in nature will happen within us. And so consequently, organizations are the same. They are not separate from nature. They all have environments. They all have different types of environments. And what is the environment and culture that you want to have within an organization? It needs to also be nomadic in its thinking, so it can be sustainable, has a wide perspective. So it sees things not narrowly of just the bottom line and KPIs and all sorts of things. No, it's about human beings. Again, we're trying to, last night I was on a coaching session, for example, with a group of coaches, and they were talking about we need to have KPIs to see how people are doing in performance reviews. And I just think, why do we have to have numbers to number us? When I was with in Namibia and with the Himba tribe, they have many, many children. And I asked, well, how many children do they have? To the chief. And he says, I don't know how many children I have. And I said, what do you mean you don't know how many children you have? And my interpreter said to me, who is from the Himba tribe there, he says, we don't count. Why don't we count? Why don't you count? I asked you. And they said, because we believe each person is equal to the other. And that we don't want to say this one, number 1 child is better than number 3 child or number 5 child. No, we want them to all be treated equally. So my question is, why do we have to number ourselves in organizations or number us? It's just a way of documenting us, but we become a numbered piece within an organization instead of just a human, a person that is giving to the benefit of not only themselves, but also to the teams that they work with and with the organization and then with the others outside. So, our whole message truly is that we are interconnected. And that is what you need from understanding the nomadic mindset. It is an interconnected mindset. It is not separationist. So And that is what has got us into this as well, is the separatedness of everything. We separate, we need more meat. So we cut down in the Amazon more rainforest because people want to eat more meat. And instead of, well, we better not, because that creates more methane. And then it all just becomes this, add-on cycle of food chain of disaster. I'm a vegetarian. I don't, and India has so many vegetarians, and it's and it's this belief system of how you respect nature and the cow and the and animals, which is so important. I don't know where we went wrong in the other parts of the world, but anyway, you have some real strong values in this particular sense, which is sustainable. So anyway, I could go on forever. I can see that, right? Sorry.
So Kevin, I think you narrated a fantastic story from Namibia, where the chief don't count the children. I think it's amazing message. There is the underlying message which has to be very clear among people. But I think I have one more question remaining, which is related to SDGs. Now, SDGs are given by United Nations. There are SDG goals.
Yes.
So SDG stands for sustainability goals for every organization, for every human being. And there is a process defined by UN. But in 2019, 2020, we got hit by pandemic. So do you think that sustainability goals that the UN has set it has to be rewritten now, or those SDG goals are still valid? What is your opinion?
Okay, so I talked to the sustainability conference at a summit out of India just a couple of weeks ago, and I was working on the number 3. And so what I suggest is that the mindset that was created at the very beginning in 2015 was a very different mindset that we need to see the world today. And so consequently, yes, that they were a great initiative, amazing initiative, and very important, and the science behind it is extremely important. However, today we need a different mindset to see where we are at and what is needed. What I suggested because I was on the education sustainability development goal. And I said, I was talking about, you can't just sort of copy and paste education. Education has not grown or changed in a lot of the different ways forward in the last 30, 40, 50 years, and teaching of it. And it needs for children in developing countries in a variety of different places, that you can't just copy and paste. Yes, education is fantastic, but we need to see it from the needs of what is now moving forward. And that's a very different need that was in 2015. We have become so fast in the digitization, we need to leapfrog some of that education to where we are and the speed of that, and not working on just individual and training them and teaching them the basics, but we need to train them for what is coming forward, not what is behind. And I mean, some of that is important. So we do need to relook, I believe, at what these are with a very wide nomadic mindset, and then hone in as to where we can go. Because you need a very wide thinking for today, much more than I think 2015.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for giving this information. And I think you also raised one more important point, but about being a vegetarian. But it's a big subject we can't discuss. But thank you for being vegetarian. Personally, I don't even take dairy products apart from being vegetarian. So I think we will come back to this subject sometime in future, Kevin. We will definitely find time to discuss vegetarianism along with nomadic mindset in the next episode. So thank you so much for giving all this information to us today.
Thank you so much, Chandra. I really enjoyed it. Grateful to everybody.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Akul Mac Live. And you know that we are a specialized channel which help SMEs to talk about their offerings, their books, their courses, etc. So, if you want to basically promote your books, your courses, and also talk about your offerings, basically reach out to people. You have reached to the right channel, and you can actually use this the link which is given just below, and there are many options available to engage with us. So use this link to subscribe to our services. And moving on, we have a very distinguished guest in our show today. His name is Naveen Toshniwal, and he is a grapho analysis expert. So let's welcome him. Without further ado, let's find out what he has to share with us today.
Hello everyone, I hope all is well, enjoying the cold.
Yes, I think we are thoroughly enjoying the cold, and in fact, there is no sun in the sky. It's almost too dark and gloomy. But then we are looking towards you, how you can make it make the environment vibrant today with your what you want to share with us.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, even I'm looking forward to it.
So, friends, in fact, Naveen has been telling us for past few weeks about the importance of graphotherapy, and which can be derived from grapho analysis. So, first, grapho analysis, the way you write, and some corrections can be made by changing the way you basically write things, and that will actually impact your character. So, today, Naveen is going to demonstrate how that is done, and Naveen is going to read out a sample handwritten document, will tell you exactly what are the drawbacks that he found today, and subsequently we will discuss further. So over to you, Naveen.
Yeah, that's right. Not only the drawbacks, but even the positive traits, because a person is always a combination of both positive and negative traits. Purpose of analysis is to first understand the person in details, both positive and negative traits, then go in for a suitable therapy so that you can use your positive traits in a much better way and get over your negative traits. So it is an overall improvement in your personality or character.
So Naveen, I'm going to showcase one of the sample handwriting, and you can then go ahead and read out and talk to the viewers about the qualities and drawbacks both from this handwriting.
Okay, so let us first start with this analysis. Now, if you see in the second line, okay, let us take the first line. There is a first word approaching. The G loop, you can see the lower loop, it is a complete loop over there. And just two words after that, DAYS, days, there also the Y loop is complete. Now, if you look at the second line, first word, GREAT, great, in that the loop is incomplete. The loop is just going halfway through. It is not making a complete loop. Now, a complete loop indicates a person who is creative and has a good imagination. A half loop indicates a person who is creative but not using creativity to the full extent. Lot of the potential or creativity is still untapped. A person with untapped potential or not utilizing the creativity to full extent will have half loops like the one appearing in the second line. So this is one of the traits which is analyzed through the lower loops. Now you go to the third line also, GAINAD, there's a word gained. There the Y loop, G loop is complete. And just three words after that, years, again the Y loop is incomplete. So this person is very creative, but not using the creativity to full extent. Now, let us see another stroke of this. In the second line, you see the word mystic, M-Y-S-T-I-C. You will see that the M, small m, is having a inverted V type of shape. This inverted V type of appearance in the small m indicates a person who has curiosity for learning, a person who wants to learn new things and understand the things by going into details. So this person has a curiosity for learning. Now, if you see two lines below that, there is a word masterpiece. Now here you see the M's are appearing with a rounded top. It is not an inverted V over here. It is rounded at the top, the way we were taught to write in our school days. So here you will see that this rounded tops, this indicate people who are slow thinkers. Now, there is nothing negative in being a slow thinker. Slow thinker just indicates that you need time to understand something. You are not a person who will grasp or understand something instantly. You will require to go into details, study and restudy something, then you will be able to understand the subject very thoroughly. So this rounded tops indicate that the person is having a habit of going into details and takes time to understand before coming to any conclusion. Okay, now let us come back to the first line again. There is a word the, T-H-E, the. There, make a note of the T bar which is going from the left to right. This indicates a person who is ambitious because the T bar is cutting towards the top of the line. Any T bar cutting towards the top of the line indicates person who is ambitious. Now let us go to the second line. There is again we take the first word great. In the word great, again you see the T bar which is going towards the right. It is not cutting the T stem fully, it is slightly going towards the right. A T bar going towards the right indicates person who has some short temper or irritability, strokes of irritability. Okay, now let us go to the first line, first word spiritual. Here again let us focus on the small t. The T bar, you note very carefully, it is cutting towards the lower side. It is in fact touching the small letter U in the same line. See, now a low T bar indicates person who lacks confidence in own abilities or has self-doubt. It is not that the person is not capable, not like that. A person may be very capable, but doubts his or her own abilities. The person has a doubt whether they will be able to accomplish a job or whether I should do it or whether I should leave it. This sort of confusing thoughts come into picture. So here the T bar is indicating three things as I have told you. The first T bar which I indicated in the first line is a person who is ambitious. Second line, the T bar going to the right indicating a person having some short temper, and a T bar going low indicating a person who is lacking confidence in own abilities. Okay, so this is how we have done some of the analysis. Now I will tell you a couple of more things in this. Let us take the fourth line, and there is the word the, T-H-E, the. Spiritual masterpiece known as the. In this word the, just note that the letter T is starting with the initial stroke going from bottom to top. This initial stroke is like a tail, you know, it's like a tail in the beginning of the word. This sort of initial stroke indicates a person who has resentment or some grudges, carrying some grudges from the past. Now remember, this resentment is not a good stroke, because what is the use of brooding over the past and getting affected by something which is already over or finished? Now, if you come to the two lines below that, against the backdrop, again in the word the, here again you will see that initial tail coming in the word the, the. This again indicates person having resentment. And okay, now let us see another word. There is a line, new generation of spiritual. In this word spiritual, note very carefully the I dot. The first I dot is a perfect round I dot, SPRI. In that first I, you will see a perfectly round I dot. This indicates a person who is loyal. It can be loyalty towards anything. It can be loyalty towards friends, family, or your work. It can be loyalty towards anything. So, is it okay, Chandrakantji, or should I tell some more strokes on this?
I think what I have seen so far is amazing, because by spending just 2 minutes on the document, you are able to find out what this person is all about in terms of certain good attributes and certain negative attributes. So, what is the advice you will give to such a person who has this kind of handwriting and his attributes are mixed bag? So, what is the kind of advice you will give him?
Right. See, that this is the most important aspect. Doing the analysis simply tells you about the person, and the person already knows about himself. Just that the realization increases, and people can really think, yes, these traits I have, these are the positive traits I have. Probably I'm not using it fully, or the negative traits, which maybe the person already knows, but not able to understand how to get over it. So now the important part is the therapy. Now in this handwriting, what we have seen is that the person is ambitious, but lacking confidence in own abilities. So in this case, the therapy which I would be suggesting to this person is to make the T bar by cutting it towards the top of the stem, like it is there in the first line, so that you are able to define your long-term goals and get over self-doubt. And also the T bar should not be going to the right, because any T bar going to the right indicates short temper. So if the person wants to get over short temper, the T bar should be cutting towards the top and should be cutting it fully. It should not be going to the right. So this is one therapy I would be giving to this person, to make the T bars towards the top, and it should be cutting and not going to the right. Now, the second therapy I would probably give to the person is completing the lower loops fully. Now, as I told you that some G loops or Y loops are complete, but some are going halfway through. So I will simply tell the person to complete the loops fully so that the creativity which is not being utilized to the full extent will be utilized fully by the person in due course of time. And another most important therapy that I would give to the person is to avoid the initial stroke, which is going from bottom to top. Like as I told you, in the initial word starting in the letter the, there is a tail-like stroke which is going from bottom to top. This resentment stroke is not a good stroke. So I would tell the person to avoid this stroke going from bottom to top, so that this person is able to get over the resentment. So these are probably the therapies I would give to this person. And as we have discussed earlier also, the therapy is very simple. I will give a particular line to write and repeat it for a duration of about 3 weeks. And if the person practices it only 5 minutes a day, they will be able to experience or feel the change in a short duration of 7 to 10 days. And by the end of 3 weeks, you will be able to see a very major change in your personality.
Well, I think you are asking this person to make changes to the way he writes T the way he writes G, and a few other, the way he cuts the alphabet T, etc. So with these
Right.
minor changes, we will actually come back on this discussion with the new handwriting and what are the changes the person has experienced in the next program. So I think it is amazing to see that, by just spending 10 minutes, you can actually suggest a person, how you can correct some of these attributes which may be dragging you down. You never know, isn't it, Naveenji?
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes we don't realize that we are not utilizing our hidden talents or brooding over something, presenting something which is all over and it may be years old and it is just taking us back in time. So in fact, next week we will review the same person's handwriting after the therapy was done and after the person felt the desired changes. So we will discuss and see the strokes, how they have changed in just 3 weeks of practice.
Excellent. So I look forward to the next week's session, Naveenji, and it was such a wonderful talking to you today. As usual, it is our personal pleasure. And today we also demonstrated how the character of the person can be analyzed by just looking at the handwriting. So it was a great experience, and we will catch up next week, Naveenji.
Yeah, thank you so much. Pleasure.
So, friends, did you enjoy the conversation today? And did you realize how easy it is to correct your attributes, some of these attributes which are related to leadership, your creativity, etc. So, if you want to engage with Naveen, you can actually subscribe to the services. You can visit this particular link which is mentioned down here below here, and you can actually engage with Naveen. You can subscribe for his 3 weeks therapy course. So as usual, I like to say goodbye for today. Just in case if you have any message, any comments, do share your comments to engage with us. And as you know that we respond to each and every comment from you. I'd like to say goodbye today, only to catch you in the next one. Hello friends, welcome to Akul Mac Live, and I am Chandrakant. This video is sponsored by Performance Works International. More about them in a bit. Today's subject is very interesting. It is about the next generation iPhone, and it could be not only a phone but also a satellite phone. So what it takes to a phone, a normal phone like iPhone, to become a satellite phone, and that is the topic of discussion for today. And friends, we are actually live right now. So if you have a question from whichever part of the world you are watching this stream, you can actually use the chat function in your social media platform, and it will instantly reach to me. I will display your name and question on the screen and answer to your question. So coming back to the iPhone, it is the the entire social media is getting flooded with the information that the next iPhone, which is iPhone 13, may have a satellite phone features. And why this is so important? I think number one is that the iPhone has to be the premium phone, That is why they actually target the creme de la creme of the users, and they want to offer more and more services to the users. So one of the key feature of iPhone is they should be able to allow all sort of applications available which are very premium in nature. And so far, satellite telephony has been a very premium service. And I think it makes sense for growth perspective for iPhone to go to the next level, where they can start looking at providing the functionality which are provided in the iPhone, and usually in the satellite phone. So usually if you look at the satellite phone, the image that comes to your mind is that it is very thick, with a thick antenna, and very bulky, very heavy body, and very bulky mobile phone. But it is very useful for people who are explorers, who are going to places where there are no networks, cellular networks, and in case they need to communicate with people, this is the phone that you carry. I mean, if you're going on a jungle trek or a mountaineering trip, this is a phone that you need to carry, because this phone has the capability to communicate directly through the satellite to whichever number you have dialed. So it will have a connectivity which is always maintained, and you don't have to really depend on the cellular network. Before I proceed further, there is a few comments, and I would like to display those comments on the screen. One of the viewer, Mr. Syed Hussain, says that if you leave your phone behind at home, you will be lost. Of course, Mr. Syed, if you leave your phone behind, then you will definitely be lost. But let's get back to our discussion. So the capability of this bulky phone that you see on the screen, with thick antenna, which has the capability of connecting with the satellite, has to be provided in a smartphone device. So that is where the challenge is, and I think Apple is working on this particular challenge, where in the next release they would like to enable iPhone devices to also have satellite phone functions. So when you're traveling with your iPhone and you go out of the city, you don't have to look for any other additional device. You can just change your network from cellular network to a satellite network, and boom, you're connected back to the world, and you can do your calling and text messaging, etc. To enable the communication, you also need connectivity with the satellite network. So it's not only a challenge where you shrink everything down into a very smart, sleek looking device, because I think the competition is with the Android phones today, and iPhone seems to be making it more sleeker, more slimmer, lightweight, long lasting battery, quick operation. And if they have to add the mobile telephony along with the satellite phone features, then the weight has to go up. But at the same time, they should have a back-end network where Apple has to have some sort of tie-up with a satellite network, where the network then provides takeover from cellular to satellite, and then provide the services to their consumers. So for that, I think there are multiple options. I will discuss that, but I think this is one of the key requirement before Apple decides to bring in satellite telephony into their smartphone devices, is to have a network to back this up. And imagine if they're able to do that, the market is waiting to explode, because you don't need to carry special devices if you're going in ocean or if you're traveling. I mean, you can have the same device while you're living in city like a normal person, and if you do an excursion, you just carry the same device, and all you have to do is switch your network from cellular to satellite. And for that, Apple must be talking to multiple satellite network provider, I'm sure. And the challenge is to fit everything into this sleek device that you love to carry in your pocket. It should be sleek, it should be long lasting, it should be feature rich, and it should be always connected. It should automatically switch from cellular to satellite, satellite to cellular. All those kind of things may be required to make this product viable. And they don't want to basically compromise on the form factor. So I think moving on, as I said, there are multiple options on the satellite network that Apple has to work through. They also need a chip which is capable of communicating with a satellite. So it is not going to be a usual Qualcomm Snapdragon chip which runs Android, or Apple chip which runs their operating system, iOS operating system. They would need some sort of collaboration with a chip manufacturer. For example, Qualcomm has one of the chip which has the capability to communicate with the satellite. So they would need to upgrade their mobile devices with a special chip which can take over and communicate with the satellite. So I think that is the requirement number 2. And I think this is where the Starlinks come in the picture, where they are already building a lot of satellites. The Starlink of Elon Musk is already building a lot of satellites. They're sending, using their Falcon 9 space program, they're sending multiple satellites which will communicate with their consumers. And as of now, North America and Europe and also India are covered. The major countries are covered basically. And if you're in India, the cost of getting a Starlink network in your home is as much as any other 4G network that you go and in the market. So right now in India, there is a beta program running from Starlink. So I think Apple must discuss with companies like Starlink and provide the coverage. The most important part of bringing the satellite telephony to your mobile device is providing that coverage. And Starlink can provide it at a very low cost, because they're already building the network which will enable the coverage across every part of the earth. It doesn't matter whether you have a fiber optics running there, because the link is coming from the sky, and it is in a lower earth orbit, something like 300 to 400 kilometers high. And if your mobile device is having that capability, that means having that high gain antenna, high battery lifetime, and also features where you can actually communicate using that special chip that you have, you can very well convert your normal sleek mobile device into a satellite phone. So I think this is where the world is going, and it's a very exciting news in the tech world, where a lot of speculation when it comes to the next leap. And Apple is always known for taking the next leap in terms of mobile devices. They have taken the first leap into a handheld smart device. They have taken the first leap in making the device lighter, smaller, sleeker. Now they're hopefully take the next leap and convert their smartphones devices into also having satellite network capability. So since satellite network are quite expensive, so I'm assuming that the operating system will have the functionality of choosing the right network at the right place. Say for example, if you're in city, then you don't have to communicate using a satellite telephone. You can use a normal cellular network which is available there. But if you're moving out of the city, you should be able to either create automated switchover, or there should be a sort of a button where you can switch on the satellite network, and then your mobile device gets connected with the satellite. So you will be able to maintain your network throughout your journey, even if you're moving out of a cellular network. So this is something which I thought I'll bring it to you, friends. Now, a word on the sponsor of this video. A big thanks to Performance Works International for sponsoring this. In fact, they are the reason for our channel to produce this kind of videos. And you must actually watch this message from them directly. And also a link is given if you want to basically reach out to them. There's a link given in the description which you can click. There is a message from Performance Works International, and I like to say goodbye for today.
This video is sponsored by Performance Works International. Are you ready for the challenges facing the modern workplace? Recent events have taught us the importance of transformation. Businesses now face a perfect storm of challenges. No business is too big to fail, and many are too slow to succeed. Our workforce is changing fast. We're entering a new age of empowerment, and everyone can contribute. The Inner CEO reveals how we can all play a part in making leading at all levels a reality. Written by Jeremy Blaine, an expert on business transformation and growth, it provides a roadmap to help everyone unleash their inner CEO and contribute beyond their job role, whatever their level. Traditionally, strategy has been owned by the few. Now it's time for the many to contribute. Leadership must come from a broader base. Everyone has the potential to step up and make things happen. It's a new model of collective and collaborative leadership which unleashes the power of people, enabled by appropriate technology and a supportive management structure. The book provides a roadmap for a bold new age of empowerment. Supported by a range of resources, the book provides a toolkit to help anyone unleash their inner CEO. Organisation health, development and growth is owned at all levels. Are you ready to unleash the inner CEO?
Hello friends, I'm Kanchan from Assimilate Technologies. You all are welcome to Top Brass Likeable Leaders. Today we have Mrs. Meena Patange, who is the Dean of College St. Anne's in Hyderabad. St. Anne's College of Women is one of the top institutions in Telangana and across South India. Hello friends, I'm Kanchan Verma from Assimilate Technologies. You all are welcome to Top Brass Likeable Leaders. Today in our show we have Mrs. Meena Patange. Mrs. Meena Patange is Dean of College. Hello friends, I'm Kanchan Verma from Assimilate Technologies. You all are welcome to Top Brass Likeable Leaders. Today we have Meena Patange, who is Dean of one of the prestigious college of Telangana, St. Anne's College of Women. St. Anne's College of Women is one of the top colleges in Telangana and a top institution across South India.
Hello friends, this is Chandrakant from Assimilate Technologies. Welcome to Top Brass Multiverse. And what we are discussing today, we are discussing about colonizing the space. And as a species, as a species which is intelligent, we can make different gadgets, we can make spaceships, we can solve puzzles of the space and universe. I think it is but natural for us to go out of Earth and colonize other planets. And I think there is always first time for everything. The mankind, primarily one of the countries on Earth which has taken lead, which is America. And about 50 years back, they sent their people on the moon. And after that, after the first Apollo mission, nobody has gone to moon. But there has been a lot of research. And if we need to be successful in understanding how humans can survive in outer space on other celestial bodies, I think it is but natural to start with our journey into colonization, starting with moon. So we need to get to the moon, learn how to survive on the moon, how to build structure, etc. And when I say that we have to colonize the moon, and that will propel the next wave of advancement and next wave of exploring the universe, exploring the space, starting with our neighborhood. And why I'm saying this, if you go back in history, the need for resources really started the colonization about 500 years back. So countries which were having lack of resources, they started discovering new sea routes, discovering new methods. They came to east by discovering, charting new sea routes, etc. And then the byproduct of that was a colonization. Same thing happened in United States, where the European went explored into the US of today, and they colonized. However, the people who colonized then started an uprising against the colonization, and hence they became the first democratic country in the world as we know it today. So I think the colonization is an important part of the growth for humanity, for the life form which exists on Earth. And the best thing to do is to start with our neighbor, which is moon. And if you look at the moon, it is a very strange satellite. It is almost like 25% of the Earth's mass, and it is in fact so large that the moon is not rotating around Earth. In fact, Earth and moon are rotating around a center of central gravitation axis which passes through Earth eventually, but then it affects the motion of Earth as well. So it makes the Earth wobble little bit. So I think that is a discussion for a different video, but I think let's concentrate on the moon. So when we look at the moon, it is a large object. It has substantial amount of gravity. It is stable. It is tidally locked. That means when it is tidally locked with Earth, it means that only one face of the moon is visible from the Earth. So if we start our colonization efforts on moon on the surface which is visible on Earth, we can then monitor what is the activity going on right from Earth. So in case there is some activity, we have the very powerful telescopes and different kind of instruments which we can focus on the surface of moon and then also monitor what is going on there. But after reaching on the moon, what drives the the next wave of scientific exploration? Because scientific exploration is only a cost center. It will not generate any new revenue. Hence, the motivation to start moon mission is very, very little, and it is not going to last for very long. So I think we have to bring some rule of economy to the colonization. So I think in last 50 years, even though we have not stepped on the moon, a lot of samples were brought back to Earth by the astronauts and also the cosmonauts of the USSR, and all this data is now available. And subsequently, a lot of research was done. There was a lot of mapping was done. There were a lot of radio analysis has been done using the ground penetrating radar. So, scientists know quite a bit about moon, about the surface. And now if you see this particular image is about the image of this face, which is always facing the Earth. And if I take you back a little bit on the previous image, there's the dark patch on the moon, is really, a matter of speculation. And for eons, humans were thinking they were the ocean basin and the water evaporated, but that's not the case at all. For a few million years back, or maybe billion years back, there was geological activity on the moon, and there were volcanoes, and these volcanoes were oozing out the lava. That means at that point in time, the moon core was hot and it was erupting. So this black portion is basically the lava, which is a new surface, and it has come out from the inside of the moon. and the lighter surface is the lighter places on the moon are the older surfaces. So the dark one is new and the light one is old. So we have all sorts of material available in these dark and light surfaces. And at this point in time, moon is not showing any geological activity. There are no tectonic plates, there is no lava, there is no earthquake. And so when we say that there is nothing happening on the moon, actually that is wrong to say, because the surface of the moon is being shaped by the shower from the space, which is meteoroids, and they create the always, when they fall on the surface of the moon, they create craters. So there is geological activity on the surface, but it is not the interior of the object is not hot and it is not oozing anything out. So we have a lot of stuff available on the surface which are required by the mankind for the development of our own species. So if we go back to this map, which has been um, created by scientists of NASA and a lot of other agencies, we know exactly. So these are all color-coded surface of the moon on this side, which is always visible from Earth. We know that there are a lot of rare Earth element available on moon, and that could be one of the incentives for colonizing moon. Let me explain how. So when I say rare earth elements, these are the elements which are required for our machinery for different use, but they are not found in abundance on earth. And so you can go and see what are these rare earth elements. It includes titanium as well. So, and titanium, as you know, is used in all flying objects, in aeroplanes, etc. So there are very few countries who have the monopoly of producing the rare earth elements or metals. So there are two. The rarity is actually two kinds. One is, first of all, even if there are resources available, we don't have the rare earth element found in our own country. So then there are natural barriers to produce this rare earth element. Right now, the rare earth elements are found in primarily 3 to 4 major areas in the world, and China being the largest. China as a country has the largest deposit of the rare earth element. So they excavate these metals and then give it to whoever wants it. So they have sort of a very huge monopoly, followed by US and followed by Australia and India. So these are all small portions that they have, but rest of the world has very small. So rest of the world depends on primarily these 4 countries because they have the natural resources in their own country. And if I give you a little bit data points about who's producing these rare earth elements. So obviously China has the largest deposit and they are actually excavating it in a large volume, and then they are the major supplier of the rare earth element, which are used in a lot of our machinery, aeroplanes and computers and a lot of other different use which are required. So while iron is also one of the most found element on earth and it is most stable, but then we also need these rare earth elements to make our machinery complete. And fortunately for us, the moon shows a lot of good signs of having a huge deposit of rare earth element, and that could be the incentive for mankind to go establish the first colony. And primarily these colonies will be mining type colonies. But when the miners goes to moon, they need to survive, and hence the exploration, geological exploration, scientific discoveries will be part of this whole process. So first we have to create an environment where we start looking at moon as a good place for us to start mining, starting with rare earth element, and there could be others also which are the elements which are not found on earth is the first side of it. Now, why I'm saying this is important, primarily because if you look at the gold rush in 1700 and 1800, that really shaped America. The America of today that we see, so many people came from far off, from different parts of the world into America, primarily because there was a gold rush and people wanted to find gold and become rich overnight. And that propelled the expense of the empire, of the country, to such a vast area. So I think this is how the humans have evolved, and this could be one of the great reasons for us to go back to moon, start a colony, have an economic reason. Anyway, we need these rare earth element for our machinery, for our use. So there will be investment in terms of survival technology, in terms of scientific exploration, in terms of geological surveys, etc. And I think we can all go back because there is a lot of information available. We know exactly what we have to do. In fact, we know exactly what element is found where. And this is on this side of the face of the moon, which is visible to us all the time. So what we got to do is basically go there, set up a colony, start mining, and probably in near future start producing stuff which can be then exported out of moon onto the earth. So instead of bringing mineral in raw form, we can start making goods directly on moon, start shipping them to earth. So I think this will start the next wave of space exploration, and I think we can start with moon being the first candidate. So I would like to know from you your thoughts, and viewers, please do share your comments. What do you think about what I'm discussing with you? I will meet you in the next video next time very soon with some more information and analytics. Until then, bye-bye.
Hello friends, welcome to Akulmak Live, and I am Chandrakant. Insolvency and bankruptcy, these are very tough words and very scary words, but there is a law around these things and it applies to every one of us, all Indian citizens. So in our legal matters show today, we will discuss about these things. Before I start my discussion, I have to tell you that there is this QR code using which you can instantly get connected with our channel. I will be taking a very short break and join back along with our prestigious guest after a few promotional messages. Friends, have you ever wondered that making a lasting impression online is similar to landing on the moon? If yes, we have a solution for you. Akulmak Genius program will help you prepare for your upwards trajectory towards success in the digital world. Our program consists of 12 unique tailor-made sessions of 1 hour each, spread over 6 weeks. Akulmak Genius program provides you practical knowledge about how to optimally use online video platform with lights, action, camera, as well as crash course in using virtual screens. The program also includes a session on the grooming and online etiquettes, which are important for running your online sessions and webinars. At the end of the program, our participants would be allowed to make their own videos, which will be published on a very popular business channel called Akulmak Live. This will provide global recognition to all our participants. If you like what you hear, then using the link in the description below, join the program straight away or visit www.akulmak.com. Hello friends, welcome back, and today in our studio we are graciously welcoming Jeet Bhatt, who is joining us from Ahmedabad. Welcome to the show, Jeet.
Thank you. Thank you, Chandrakant, for having me on this show on legal matters. And yes, today we are going to discuss a very important topic on the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016. And yes, looking forward for today's discussion.
I think it is important for us to understand this insolvency law, because in the current session of Parliament, I think there are some amendments which are waiting to be approved. So as it is, we should know exactly what is the meaning of it, and I look forward towards you to explain to our viewers in detail.
Yes, Chandrakant, you're right. In fact, this is a new legal system that has been set in place for the first time, whereby the insolvency and bankruptcy code is consolidated into one act and one law, and the adjudicating authorities which are constituted, also the Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India that has been constituted under this act, are great steps towards making India a evolved and mature market economy. And insolvency laws, bankruptcy laws are very important because it wipes out the bad part of the economy. And the faster time-bound resolution of the procedure of insolvency and bankruptcy is absolutely essential for a thriving economy. And therefore, this is a great step ahead towards achieving that goal of becoming a matured free market economy. And the code which is enacted is based on the Bankruptcy Law Reforms Committee report, which was submitted by Dr. Vishwanathan in the year 2015, and based on which then this code has been enacted. And the committee studied the entire legal regime in India and came to the conclusion that the present legal system is not so much efficient or has not proved to be successful. And different laws are governing different aspects of insolvency and liquidation and bankruptcy processes. When the Companies Act of 1956 dealt with the provisions of liquidation for companies, then personal insolvency were dealt by 100 years old laws, namely the Provincial Insolvency Act of 1920. And also thereafter in the year 1985, the Sikh Industrial Companies Act was formulated, which was dealing with Sikh companies. And also the experience had shown that the processes were quite slow. And the average year for completing the insolvency and bankruptcy process in India took more than 4 years, whereas the other developed countries like Singapore used to take around 10 months. Within 1 year, the entire process could be complete. Also, UK had a very successful bankruptcy system, which gets completed in 1 year. Also, US similarly, also the entire process gets completed within a period of 1 year. And that is very important because if the money is stuck in a bad company and the creditors are not able to recover, and the company is also not a going concern, then the best is to go through this insolvency and bankruptcy procedure and get it dissolved, and so that the entrepreneurs or the promoters or the management can get over that company and move ahead with different businesses. Otherwise, what happens, the management is also stuck until it gets over. If they are declared as willful defaulters, no capital, they are not able to generate any capital from anywhere. So therefore, it to an extent limits or restricts the entrepreneurship which actually can develop in this country if a proper legal regime of insolvency and bankruptcy is constituted. So therefore, this is a very important step, and a comprehensive code has been developed and put into practice. But since it has been 5 years, it is evolving, and we are seeing gradually there have been a lot of amendments which are going on. In fact, every year there has been an amendment coming up in this act, and which originally started with 255 sections. Today has around 288 sections with several schedules, and with 6 to 7 amendments. So certainly the policy and the system is evolving in India, but the courts, the educating authorities, and the government is certainly attempting to create a very viable and comprehensive bankruptcy and insolvency laws in India. They are developing this, and that is a very welcome step. Now, I will just briefly give you the basic features of this code, the most important object of this code is to ensure that a company which is becoming insolvent is continued as a going concern, because that is very important, because a lot of people, a lot of capital, a lot of assets are involved, a lot of employees are working. So the first idea of the code and the object is to continue as a going concern despite of insolvency proceedings going on. And this is the first time that India and the legislatures have enacted this type of procedure, which is known as corporate insolvency resolution process, wherein the company is continued as a going concern, the management is taken over by the resolution professional, and it is run in consonance with the committee of creditors which is constituted. And therefore, this regime now shifts from the debtor in control regime, the earlier regime, which was under the Sikh Industrial Companies Act, to a creditor in control regime. And that is very important, because creditors who lend money and big consortiums, big financial creditors whose crores of rupees are involved, and the company is not in a position to pay them back, they get a say in running the company. And therefore, this is a very important shift in this insolvency regime. And what it does is it ensures that the company goes through as a going concern throughout this process of corporate insolvency resolution process, and which has to be completed by the resolution process professional within a period of 180 days, and which can be further extended to a period of another 90 days. But then it has to be completed within the period of 270 days. So right now, the process of insolvency and bankruptcy in India has cut down from the earlier 4 years to around 1.5 to 2 years, and that is a considerable achievement that has the country has been able to provide with this IBC of 2016, that is Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. So it distinguishes between a financial creditor and an operational creditor. And financial creditor is a person who has given or lended money to the corporate entity. And an operational creditor is one who has provided for some services or given some goods. So there is a distinction. Both these financial creditor as well as the operational creditor, if the debts are not paid by the corporate debtor, can move an application before the National Company Law Tribunal, that is the adjudicating authority. And it decides on that application which is filed by financial creditor or operational creditor for initiation of corporate insolvency resolution process, and that has to be decided within a period of 14 days. So it doesn't happen, but that is the time-bound procedure and the time-bound mechanism which has been provided under the Act. And the essence of this Act is that everything happens within a time period. And the first object is to continue the corporate debtor, that is the company, as a going concern. The second object is to maximize its assets, so that it may not have to be sold at a throwaway prices. So the second purpose is to maximize its assets. And the third most important object of the Act is to constitute the Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India, which is a regulator, which deals into this entire system and provides for all the mechanisms in place, like the insolvency professional agencies, the information utilities, etc. And therefore, these are the three main objects of this Act. And the corporate insolvency resolution process, which has to be conducted within a maximum period of 270 days, is a process whereby the resolution professional takes over the management of the company, and he tries to manage it in consonance with the committee of creditors. And they invite an expression of intent for applicants to take over the management of the company, so that they can sell the entire company as a going concern. And once a resolution applicant bids for taking over the management, and if the committee of creditors votes by a vote of 66% in favor of the applicant, then the resolution plan is prepared, and that resolution plan is moved before the adjudicating authority. If the adjudicating authority finds the plan to be in consonance with the provisions of the Act and also in compliance with other laws of the country, then the resolution plan is accepted and the company's management gets shifted and the company is taken over by the resolution applicant. So what happens is the employees, the workmen, the labor do not get affected, and the object is to resolve and restructure the debt rather than the company to be liquidated. Because if this fails, this process of CIRP fails, then the company goes into liquidation. And in liquidation, the employees, the labor forces are all terminated and they lose their job, and the assets of the company are then liquidated by the liquidator. And then as per the waterfall mechanism, the creditors get their dues. But the liquidation value is always less than what the net present value of the company would be if it is taken over as a going concern. So these are the broad features of this act, which I've just explained you in very brief way.
Jeet, I have two questions basically as a layman. One is what type of companies are covered under this law? Is it applicable only to the listed companies or any sort of company is covered? Number two is when the promoters of the company would come to know that this law is applicable on them, what is the timing of it? Is there a definition around that also given in the law?
Yes, Chandrakant. So this act applies to every company which is registered under the Companies Act, either the old or new. And it also applies to limited liability LLPs, also applies to partnership and proprietorship firms. And it also applies to individuals who want to go through this insolvency process. It also applies to personal guarantors of the corporate debtors, that is corporate entities. So it applies to, I would say, every person, because individuals are covered, partnership firms are covered, even proprietorship firms are covered, and so are the limited liability partnerships as well as the companies established under the Companies Act. And with regards to your second question, the promoters, in fact, this code has come into existence in 2016 from probably 1st of October 2016. And that is the date on which it came into existence. Right now, the provisions of personal insolvency and for partnership are not coming to force. But there are provisions under the IBC and it will gradually come into existence, come into force. But right now, the code is completely applicable to all corporate entities, like the companies, LLPs, and also all companies registered under the old as well as the new Companies Act.
I think this is a great information that you have given us today, especially around the insolvency. I think it is not very well understood in India, even though people have been in business for very long time. But since India is such a large country and a lot of establishments are mom and pop shop kind of establishments, they don't understand the implication of insolvency. I think you have done great justice by explaining this to our viewers. So viewers, I think if you have any question around insolvency, I think you can shoot it out to us and we can ask this question in the next episode from Jeet. Jeet, thank you so much for finding time and coming over to our show and explaining this very important law. And I think it is undergoing some changes also during this session of Parliament, and we keep following this story as it happens.
Definitely, Chandrakant. We will keep on following on this topic and on the new recent developments that come into place.
Thank you very much, Jeet, and we will catch you next week in Legal Matters.
Thank you very much, Chandrakant, for having me.
Hello friends, this is Akul Mac Live and I am Chandrakant. Jeff Bezos has successfully blasted off into the space and returned after a successful flight. And this success actually forces us to think what will be the future of space tourism. So I think this is a fantastic subject for our discussion. Before I start, I have to tell you, you can now get connected with our channel instantly by just pointing your camera from your mobile phone on this QR code. So friends, I'll be back after a short break. Don't go anywhere, as an outstanding space odyssey is coming up right now. Welcome back, friends. On April 12th, 1961, Mr. Yuri Gagarin became the first human to go into space. That day, he saw the world in a way no human had seen before. Since then, only 560 to be precise, people have gone to space. Most of them have been trained astronauts who spent years preparing for this flight. But when will the rest of us will get a chance to go to space? And what will we do when we get there? In this video, we are going to look at the future of the space tourism. We're also going to look at the private astronauts who have paid to go to space. Also, reusable rockets that can help kickstart the space tourism industry. Since the beginning of the space flight, only 7 people have given money to go to space. And in 2001, the American entrepreneur Dennis Tito paid $20 million for 8-day trip to International Space Station. At that time, NASA thought it's inappropriate for tourists to go into space, so they refused to train him. Instead, he partnered with the Russians and took a ride on a Soyuz mission along with 2 other cosmonauts. He remembers the glorious moment when he first looked at the window and saw the curvature of the Earth against the darkness of the space. Dennis spent a total of 8 days on the International Space Station and conducted various experiments and admired the incredible view of the Earth. So far, number of visitors to space have been very, very small, but that may all change in near future. With many private space companies developing reusable spacecraft, the cost of spacecraft is starting to drop dramatically. The Blue Origin is developing its new Shepard spacecraft specifically for touring flights into space. The capsule has 6 seats with largest windows ever seen in any spacecraft. During these flights, the rocket will accelerate to about 100 kilometers altitude before cutting off the engine, releasing the capsule. At this point, the capsule is essentially in a free fall, but still traveling upwards because of the momentum. And it will reach its highest point. The passengers will be able to leave their seats inside the capsule and experience the effect of weightlessness. A few minutes later, the passengers would return to their seat before the capsules enter the atmosphere, and effects of weightlessness would disappear. Although these flights are extremely short, reusability of the rocket could give customers the chance to experience the wonders of space for as little as $200,000. While this will still only satisfy the super rich, it is still a step in the right direction if the space flight has ever to achieve a price and safety standards of airliners. But as the industry grows and companies compete to develop the cheapest rides into the space, the price would drop even further. To each space vehicle that can be reused multiple times before it needs serious refurbishment, the customer would only need to cover the cost of the crew and the fuel. The airplane can fly several times per day and operate thousands of flights in its lifetime. If a rocket can reach even a fraction of these numbers, the space tourism could open up to a wider public. But developing cheap rides in space is only half the problem. In fact, the cost of space is incredibly expensive luxury. It costs NASA about almost $4 billion every year to run the International Space Station. After years of avoiding commercialization, NASA recently opened the ISS for the paying customers. But even with the exorbitantly high cost, ISS still is the destination for the wealthy. To pick up food and air during your stay on ISS will cost you about US dollars 22,500 per day. Once everything like electricity and Wi-Fi is included, night stay on ISS will cost you about minimum US dollars $35,000 per day. For space tourism to become a reality, the cost of building and operating a habitable space station would need to significantly reduce the cost of the space technology. There is a startup called Bigelow Aerospace is developing a large inflatable space station modules. These modules can be packed into rocket payload bays and inflated to much larger size when in space. The idea is that such large expandable modules will be perfect base for space hotels. Currently, ISS requires a huge team of people working 24 hours a day to keep the station running. Bigelow Aerospace is hoping to simplify the operations of these modules and reducing running costs. And since these are easier to manufacture, cheaper to launch than traditional space modules, they can completely reduce the cost of living in space. So although the idea of space tourism may seem like a distant fantasy even today, incredible advances in reusable rockets and space module could soon open the door to a new generation of explorer. So I look forward to your comments, friends. Do let us know what is your opinion about the future of space tourism. Hello friends, this is Agul Mac Live and I am Chandrakant. Most of the Indians would be tracking the news about social media and there are a lot of fake news also being coming our way. The war between the government and the social media platform is heating up. Some of the social media platform has approached the court, but you know what government is asking them to do? Basically create a self-regulatory system. And this is related to whistleblowing because social media platform has been used to spread news, to spread good news, and in case something is going wrong somewhere, social media is a very simple tool which can be used to spread the information, put pressure on the governance to take corrective measure. However, the whistleblowing arena itself is going out of hand, and this is the matter of discussion for today. Before we start our discussion, let me tell you that there is a free giveaway. Stick around in this discussion till the end, and we will tell you how you can claim your free gift. Friends, welcome back. And in today's discussion, let me invite my guest today. He's joining us from London. His name is Mr. Naval Gun, and he's chairman of MindFit Limited. The discussion is about whistleblowing and what is going on in the social media in the context of Indian tussle between Indian government and the social media platforms, and what is happening world over with the whistleblowing. So without further ado, let me have Naval start the discussion today.
Good morning, CK. Good morning, everybody. And a very warm welcome to this interesting little discussion that we're going to have today. It's going to be about whistleblowing, but I suppose the bottom line here is about integrity. It's about who we are, what we do when we do it. Are we doing the right thing, or are we doing things that literally are right for other people or are right for us because it's helping us achieve something? I want to be more specific than that as the discussion will unfold. So let's look at the Facebook issue, which is probably not just Facebook, it's Twitter, WhatsApp, and anything associated with the Twitter and Facebook family. In India in particular, some laws were passed earlier this year, and some fairly simple requests were made around individuals' privacy to make sure that we were protected in the best way possible. And let's face it, social media platforms have been put on the spot around the world about putting out propaganda, even though not generated by people in these organizations that run the platforms, but it's being used by terrorists, by people that just want to unsettle the world, that want to put out propaganda that's for themselves. You might call them influencers, but it's the negative arena. It's fake news. It's the stuff that we're trying to get off social media even before it starts, because it does bring panic around the world, and suddenly a belief and what someone says in print, in writing, is suddenly fact. And the reality of life is there is probably about 1% of fact and 99% of fiction and imagination. So that's the subject for today. So CK, let's look at what's happened literally recently with the storming of one of the Delhi offices. That's never good news for a media organization such as Twitter. But let's look at that in particular. What does the Indian government ask these people to do in simple terms, and what clearly are they not doing?
Well, I think there are a lot of global news a couple of months back, and there was an exposed toolkit about Break India conspiracy, which has been identified globally. It was exposed globally because one of the activists in the Netherlands, in her response, in her tweet, she accidentally attached her internal document, which was now called Break India Toolkit, as a response. So she made it public by mistake, and as a result, a couple of months back, there were a lot of people arrested in India because they were found in India, and a lot of people have been summoned who are outside India into the Indian courts for doing anti-India activities and planning it. And the toolkit has been so detailed that the exact dates and exact amount of money which will be spent on the road and on the social media, both are defined so well, and those events which are written in these toolkits are synchronized very well with actual events. So it is it is a proof in a sense. So at that point in time, Indian government came out with some regulations, and it is very simple. These are very simple regulations. They said that you have to regulate yourself. We don't want to impose any laws on you, because we want to maintain freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of everyone's ability to speak out. So they don't want to curb anything, and that's why they said you have to self-regulate yourself. And that was a simple laws. And in order to do that, they said there was only 3 demands. They said that you have to appoint an officer who will actually enable you to do that, and that officer must be an Indian, based in India. He can be a foreigner, but he should be based in India. He cannot be based in New Zealand and make governance as per Indian laws. So obviously these new positions have to be created, new people have to be identified who will then own the legal liability, because in such cases, if the social media has been found to spread lies, and I just want to add to what you said before I started talking, Neville. These guys are now known as intermediary. They are not known as a media house anyway. So since they are intermediary as per the laws, their responsibility lies to delete any information which has been multicasted. I wouldn't say broadcasted, because the social media has the ability to multicast the fake news. Then as per the Indian law, it is the responsibility of Twitter, Facebook and WhatsApp to delete that information and penalize those people who are either forwarding those information or creating those. So this is the basic simple demand, and this is a background in short term.
And as you say, just picking up that last point, the whole purpose here is to eliminate fake news, is to actually give people the facts. And interestingly enough, the Indian government isn't unique in this. It does things that actually they get it wrong. So what I don't think we're saying here is we need to be suppressing all of the whistleblowers that are actually trying to deliver the facts. And hold governments to account. So I don't think that's, you can't have your cake and eat it from this high position of the ivory tower in government. But I'd also like to go back to this toolkit. And when it first came out, I think I was a little surprised that someone had been a little careless in putting out the IP of the organization, because that's what it was. It was very clever, very coordinated PR document about if this happens, this, then this, then this, then this. And we can see how orchestrated any PR needs to be, any marketing needs to be. You don't take this and, you don't put a little video out there and just hope it goes viral. You get your friends to go and like it and share it and get feedback on it. And that's how things go viral. And I don't think that the toolkit, in many respects, despite the fact they actually gave some pretty detailed inside knowledge of what this particular company was doing, I don't think it was doing anything that any normal group organization would do. It's just the fact that it was made very public. So I suppose my comment in all of that is a little silly to have put it out there in the first place, because clearly it means you don't understand what you've got in front of you and how important it is. And the other thing is, under confidentiality, it was part of the organization's intellectual property. I mean, these are normally covered under confidentiality statements, which is at the very heart of what we're talking about here. It's about personal information not being shared in the public domain, or information being shared in the public domain that's not true. So I think the whole issue around this so-called toolkit has just made me smile in an obtuse type of way, because I can't believe that people didn't realize this was going on anyway.
Well, I think it's very funny also. Like you said, you're not using this word, but I am, because I'm an Indian. It's so funny. And it's something like, for the first time, we were able to catch the conspirators red-handed, because people who were, it was a Google Doc, and instructions were being given with dates and time and the amount of money which will be paid. All that is recorded in the document, and it was a privately shared document among people. And because of that, all those people are now red-handed and they're caught. So earlier we used to only make conspiracy theories and maybe make some movies and all that, because nothing to prove what we are saying. So now it's a proof. And I think it's foolishness, because somebody tried to ask this person a question, and out of her emotions, in terms of her belief system, because she probably believed it, whatever has been fed to her, she believed that seriously, and she said, okay, here you go, take it, read it for yourself. So she sort of believed this as evidence, that toolkit which has been created by conspirator. And if you remember, the Spectre organization of Mission Impossible is something like that.
Spectre, James Bond, it is. I mean, but the thing is, this, these directors and writers of movies have probably got closer to the facts than you or I, than the general public. And they're trying to make it interesting. They're into the entertainment arena. But the reality of life is, a lot of this does go on in real life. There is There is cameras. There is facial recognition. There is trying to chase your customer. When someone lands on your website, they capture a cookie, and now it says, this is our cookie policy. Do you agree with it? Well, if you say no, you get booted off the website. You're not allowed to go through it. So this is not. I don't think this is rocket science. I think I use the word silly. Perhaps stupid comes to mind, but it's actually not. To me, it's not understanding what you've got in front of you, and I think that's half the problem. And when you're in an organisation such as these are, and you've got what this is quite damaging in many respects. I mean, that particular document was how to undermine a government. And you can only imagine that this has been used time and time and time again. I mean, it's a toolkit, It's something that you can download and then apply all of your particular marketing issues. And it is a bit like mafia, really. It's having inside here, inside there. It's a complete chronology of events, who gets paid what, who's on the payroll, who isn't on the payroll. I wonder, CK, if you went down there and you saw the initial CK by some huge rupee payment. I didn't, so I don't expect you did either. But again, some of these documents are encrypted. The little black book approach to a spy or an insider or even a salesperson. They've always got an angle on someone else, and it's a question of what you're going to use and when you're going to use it. So I think this whole toolkit issue has really brought out Pandora's box. But for those that work in big business, it's almost like, so what? We know this. It's a bit stupid to actually give, dot the I's and cross the T's and almost give a direct line of sight to not just individual names, but addresses. You may as well just, package it up and send it to the CIA or the MI5 or whoever, because it becomes a very, very specific, special, internal and not public document. And I guess the whole issue today is when you make these things public, why are you doing it? What's the motivation here? And let's talk a little bit about whistleblowers. I wasn't called a whistleblower, but I was known of being one in an organization because I wanted to make sure that we did the right thing. And I would put my head above the parapet and say it many times. I don't believe that's right. I don't believe that's what we should be doing. I think we should do this in a slightly different way. Or at least if that's the absolute outcome, then we need to mitigate risk assessment of, what's going to happen with it. And on a few occasions, CK, I can tell you now, I walked away. I didn't want to be part of it. And made my voice, well known. Now, lives were never at risk, as some of the issues on COVID around today. So that was one thing, but it was the company's future that was at risk. And like anything else, my spreadsheet said something, their spreadsheet said something else, and we, I suppose, agreed to disagree. But I wouldn't be party. My integrity was pretty sound. I wouldn't be party to going down a particular route if I didn't believe in it. I'd just withdraw. And it's difficult to do that. I know it's difficult to do that in a toxic environment, or when your job depends upon your compliance to the organization. Your salary is dependent upon you doing as you're told. It's really difficult to do.
Neville, let me add to what you are saying. It's very difficult for normal people, but then if you have a deal with the devil, then you have to sell your soul. So this is exactly what happens. This is exactly what happens. You know, when you take money for something which is not legal, then you're caught in the web. They will ask you to do a small thing. You will think, hey, what's the harm? Let me take this and write few lines, and that's it. And then first assignment will give you $100. The next one will be more paying, more difficult, and then you keep, you know, getting entangled into that. So this is exactly what happened with these activists who actually exposed this toolkit. And it is a lot of people got exposed. In fact, I remember 3 months back when this whole news exploded in India. A lot of business people from United States are involved who have arms dealer, you know, those kind of people are funding this. So a lot of names that have come in the public arena. There could be a lot of names which are still not revealed by the government, but government knows everything. Now, it is also alleged that the social media, knowing these things, are propagating and allowing these things to happen. And that is a charge of the government, and they have been summoned because WhatsApp is used to multiply the fake news arena, and also Twitter, because Twitter has ability to snowball because of this share and reshare facility. And Twitter has been openly refusing to follow government guidelines. So for past 1 week, there has been a big debate happening in India on the social media again, that some of these social media may be asked to close down. And these are, believe me, Neville, large names which will be asked to close down if, because of non-compliance. So this is going to happen. So when you talk about whistleblowing, and when you are an intermediary social media platform, your role has to be understood properly. Your role is to facilitate the whistleblower. But if something which is falling in the arena of fake news, your responsibility as per your use policy is you will actually delete the spams, penalize the people who are spreading spams, and also take action on it. So refusing to take action, that means you are accomplice. So this is exactly what is happening here in India.
Yeah, and it's really not good news, is it? I mean, fundamentally, we do not want... I mean, if I were to read a propaganda paper day in, day out, I believe the propaganda. I mean, that's what politics is all about. It's about, you know, what your belief system is. But if you never question anything and you take things for granted, and the problem is a lot of people never question what these platforms are saying because they take it for granted. It's like a newspaper. But actually, when you start to investigate and go deeper, just scratch the surface, there are very few facts around this. And as we know, I mean, the key element here is the fundamental, you know, issue about leadership is being aware of the facts. And if you have to fill in the gaps, use your experience to fill in the gaps. And if the gaps are far bigger than the data that you really know as fact, then you're in a big risk arena because you just don't know what's happening. So when it comes down to the bigger issue of leadership, you know, we want to know the facts. And if I then make a decision on those facts, then I can be held accountable. But if the facts have got so many holes, like Swiss cheese, huge holes in it, then you delay decisions. It's as simple as that, because sometimes you just can't fill in the holes. You're out of your comfort zone. You're having to imagine things might happen. And that fundamentally is one of the reasons why we need to be holding these platforms to account to ensure that they're giving the truth. I'm not talking about, you know, some, you know, little tittle-tattle that might be going on, but we're talking about big worldwide issues, big country issues, global warming, etc., etc. And, you know, some people out there, you know, even now, I was sent a page on the Facebook website that said the Earth was flat. And it wasn't even from the Flat Earth Society. It was someone, you know, in the middle of nowhere that just threw a paper out there. Now, you might get someone reading that and saying, oh, yeah, I believe that. They're a professor, they've got this doctorate, that doctorate, and all of a sudden, it's fake news again. Now, I'm not for one saying that the Earth is flat, by the way, everybody, because it just isn't, plain isn't. And if you want to find that out, then literally just look at the way the sun moves. And as we all know, the sun moves around the Earth, doesn't it, CK? Fake news, fake news, fake news. That's alert, alert. You know, we move around the sun. It's been proven many, many times by scientists, mathematicians, but you can do a little sundial experiment, you know, in your own garden, and you can prove that actually we move around the sun because of the shape of things that happen. But anyway, that's a different story. So today's subject, whistleblowing, fake news, closing down social media platforms that are propagating literally untruths. But the main thing is it starts with us. So our message today to everybody is don't believe everything that someone says. Challenge it, question it, you know, prove it to yourself. And once you've proven it to yourself, then put it into your belief system. And then you don't have to go back to it because you know it's true. And if someone then challenges it, you just ignore it because you know it's true. Unless there's some new information that comes to light that challenges that belief system. In which case then, you better start listening.
Well, Naval, this gives me an idea. If you look at the Washington Post, the top of their newspaper where the name is written, they also mention that their news can be used as an evidence. So their confidence level is so high that they say that we have actually done the investigation. And you can use this news article as one of your investigation, evidence. So I think that's the level of confidence that Washington Post is demonstrating. I think there is a need for another platform today, which will filter out the real news from the fake news. I think there is an opportunity for somebody who wants to put in his money using AI or whatever technology and say that, you know, you connect your Facebook to my platform, your Twitter and everything to my platform, and I will only showcase what is real and remove all the fake updates from your Facebook, from your Twitter, and from your LinkedIn. Isn't it? Does it sound like an idea?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we all look forward to a day where there's this magical app that sits on our phone and just screens all the rubbish and puts it in the Bravo India November, as we call it, bin, trash can. So it doesn't even get to my ears. Of course, that needs a lot of AI, a lot of investment, but watch this space, because someone out there is thinking this very, very issue. As the inventor of the internet, do you know who the inventor of the internet is? Where its source is? Who created it?
It was from UK. Suddenly his name is out of my mind.
It's hyphenated, a guy called Tim Berners-Lee.
Yes.
And he has, for several years, said, you know, the internet is out of control. We need to give back control to who the internet was for. And the internet was for you and me. It was for us. Not to be hijacked by toolkits, by mafia operation, by any form of, let's call it terrorism in its widest sense, fanatics out there. It was for you and me to share information openly and honestly, to get the best information you can, have it on tap, so that it was the right fact. It was true facts. And unfortunately, as he keeps saying for several years, it's been hijacked. We need to take it back. And maybe, you know, the Indian government are on his side. I mean, Maybe they've got their own toolkit running somewhere, and they're in discussions in the back cave about taking back the internet. But we'll see. I have a feeling something is happening. Privacy is a massive issue around the world. I don't think people realize how much you can see about yourself, despite the fact you think you're a very private individual. What I suggest to everyone today is put your name in Google and see what happens.
Absolutely, Neville. And in fact, the trouble starts when the social media starts saying, hey, we don't follow your guidelines, your regulations. And still, when you have half the income coming from India and you don't follow the rules of the land, and they keep actually giving the blue ticks. So there is a blue tick, and can you imagine, Neville? I just want to tell everyone that, you know, our handle has about 40,000 views every month. It's not too great. It's not a couple of 100,000, but it's like 40,000. And we had applied for blue tick. We were refused by both Instagram and by Twitter. Whereas there are these blue ticks who are spreading fake news. And when government actually goes and say that, so what is the meaning of blue tick? Blue tick is that you have verified, you have done the address
The Washington
check.
Post. Yeah, Washington Post. You know, they stand by it. You can use it in the courts. I mean, that's to me is what journalism should be all about. I mean, that's what the newspapers, that's what media should be doing. You know, you can take our information as fact. You know, we may our journalists may be using a little flowery language from time to time, but the facts are facts. We haven't flowered up the facts.
Absolutely. I think this topic is very big and we can keep throwing a lot of examples here. But thank you so much, Neville, for coming to our show today and finding time to discuss this very, very pertinent subject. But we will catch up because this story is still evolving. The June will be interesting month, and I will catch up with you on the same subject again in month of June.
Oh, this will run and run. Have a good day, everybody. Cheerio.
We have some unique Akulmek memorabilia which will make you look outstanding. The graphics on these corporate gifts are based on the global best business practices. To become recipient of one of these gifts for free, you have to watch this video till the end and provide your valuable comments, or you can also share your experiences. The person who makes the best comment would be chosen to become a recipient of this beautiful Akulmek gift, absolutely free, delivered to your doorsteps. The winner would also get a chance to be invited live as a distinguished panelist during our next video. What are you waiting for, friends? Please subscribe Akulmek and smash that like button. Hello friends, welcome to Akulmek Live. And viewers, if you remember, we talked about the Earthshot Award few days back, I think 2 weeks back, and we discussed how an Indian company, namely Takachar, got the award and also funding of £5 million from this award, and they are the first one to get it. I think the environment issue is becoming a very big issue. In fact, it is being discussed globally by everyone. And to take the discussion forward, I will be joined by my friend, Mr. Mike Bradley. He's a Chief Strategy Officer of Scale Up Arena, and he's joining us from UK. So let's welcome Mike, friends. Hello, Mike. Good morning and welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm very good, thank you, Chandra. And how about yourself? And how's Delhi today? Is it sunny, warm, raining, warm?
Well, I think in India it's a very moderate weather right now, and uh, it's neither raining, but it's quite sunny, but very pleasant days we have. The temperature is in the 20s. So I think we are in the best time period right now. Neither very hot, not very cold. It's not even raining. But I think interesting thing is that the Earthshot Prize was announced, and the first ever 15 finalists have been chosen after the grueling, study and project plans by the committee, and they have selected. And in fact, before you joined, I already told about one of the companies called Takachar from New Delhi. They got the first award, I guess. So, what is your opinion on this, the climate change, and why it is such a big issue? I'd like to know.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I was going to say, how's Delhi today? Hopefully, the air will be cleaner as a result of the Takachar initiative, which, of course, is a massive step in the right direction. And I think the Earthshot award scheme is a very good one, because not only is it focusing people's minds on the five key areas that are very important, protection of nature, air cleanliness, oceans revival, waste-free living, and climate action. But also it's a global initiative, so it's seeking to bring people together along with innovation and technology to make a significant change in what is a very important area for us all. So I think it's really great news that this is coming around, and I also think it's good news that it's focusing on innovative approaches to things. And I think it's refreshing to have something new in this area, because, of course, what we've also got coming up in Glasgow next month is the COP26, which means, I don't know if you know this, means Conference of Parties. And the reason it's 26 is it's in its 26th year, which is where apparently those who are attending, governments, non-government organizations, NGOs, trade unions, businesses, and anyone else, quotes, with any interest in climate change meets to review and negotiate global action. So, I think the refreshing thing about the Earthshot is it's focusing on new approaches, seeking to address the most important aspects. Obviously, COP26, here we are, 26 years on. How much has it achieved? Well, that's sort of up for debate. There's a great deal of hope and expectation, but 26 years on, it would appear that we're still in the face of major issues in those big five areas. So it's, of course, good to bring all these groups together, but it's only actually action that is going to help us to achieve anything. So for me, I think it's good that both of these things are happening. The COP26, an ongoing focus from those groups, but also Earthshot as a new approach to what is at least a 26-year-old problem, that we need to face with new practical solutions.
Yes, Mike, in fact, you are absolutely right when you make that statement that we need immediate attention, make sure that we have a clean and good environment for all of us for our future. Um, but I'm going to make a controversial statement. Don't take it in any other way. Uh, but I think it's going to create some controversy. The controversy is about the two largest nation. In fact, I would say three largest nations of the world. And when we talk about pollution, whether it is air pollution, water pollution, etc., it is largely dependent on the population of the country. So if there are three large countries, which is first China, then India, and the US, United States of America. These are the most populous pockets in the world. And out of these three pockets, the most polluting is the Western world. If you look at this, so if you look at the per capita pollution created by humans living in the Western society as compared to at least India, I do not know about China, but at least India is 1/10 of what the pollution being released by the Western society. So when we talk about, uh, like for example, you mentioned COP26, I think there is a major disconnect, because the first thing is, who's the culprit who's spreading the pollution more than the other. I think the COP26 and all these bodies are still struggling to, I mean, they're playing a blame game, basically, in other words. So that is why I said that is going to create some controversy. They're blaming each other. The Indians may be blaming Americans, Americans may be blaming Chinese, Chinese may be blaming everybody else. So it's a blame game going on. So how effective from your point of view this COP26 would be in order to fight the pollution problem of the earth?
Well, it is a blame game, and the challenge is for us all, I believe. Because the danger is hiding behind who is the biggest polluter. Is well, that means that unless the biggest polluter does something about it, we all might as well give up. And I think that in a way is conveying the wrong message. What we all need to do is we all need to say, well, we all have a responsibility to do what we can in these particular categories: the protection of nature, air cleanliness, ocean survival, revival, waste-free living, and climate action. So the actions need to start for every individual, every organization, every government. And the danger with saying, oh, well, it's not us, it's them, is that gives us an excuse to say, well, we're not going to bother doing anything until the biggest one does something. And that isn't going to work. So, it may well probably is that Western economies have more to do. But again, until every individual recognizes their potential for improvement and ways that they can do things better, then that is just diverting the issue, kicking the can down the road, if you like.
Well, I think the pollution problem is a very big problem for all living, not only humans, and different ideologies also. So if you're Taliban, you still are affected by the pollution problem. However, in order to understand the terrorism, world has immediately got united, and they created FATF, and they created different anti-money laundering laws, and were implemented across 200 nations. Everybody had to accept it. Why, you know, why we are not able to get united? A much bigger problem, solve a bigger problem, much bigger than terrorism, and come to a solution where everybody follows certain regulations. What do you have first of all, you agree with this, what I'm saying? Secondly, do you have a solution what we should be doing as a United Nation?
Well, I think it's very true what you say, that we've been able to collectively get behind big issues, and I think there's behind the scenes there's vested interests that are at stake here. And those organizations that have the biggest global impact are the ones that should probably get behind this the most. Collective action on those, again, is going to be challenging because we can't point the finger and say that, if if you are polluting the oceans, you are committing a global crime, for example. Then, and until we can or will recognize that this is what's happening, that destroying the environment, destroying the earth, destroying the oceans, destroying the air, that is a criminal offense, then there's always going to be some people who say, well, actually, that can't be our priority right now because what we're trying to do is X, Y, or Z. But on the other side of the equation, turning those things into criminal offences, of course, that is also going to be a major issue and totally impractical. So my own personal view is we have to collectively and individually, as individual people, individual organizations, individual governments, local governments, we have to look at our own big footprint issues, how we are damaging the environment, the earth, the climate, the air, the oceans, and do what we can as individuals. And if every individual made that commitment, and that I think is through education, that is through maybe taxation, that is through taking steps to look at the big things that each of us can do as individuals and organizations, then there'll be a major shift forward. The snag is the polar ice caps are melting, right? But you and I, as individuals, can do absolutely nothing about that. But if we collectively can do something that changes, and maybe it's a change of behavior. I'll take, for example, a few years ago, recycling didn't happen in waste in the UK. But now we have recycling bins. And okay, it's not a perfect solution, but actually we are seeking to reduce our waste, and make better use of our resources through that recycling program. So I think that's a good example of what can be done, which maybe 30 years ago we'd never have considered. What we have to do, of course, is work faster. And there are again, of course, those individuals who are saying, well, it's not going to make any difference because whatever we do now isn't going to change the outcome. That's a bit of a defeatist attitude. What we can do is we can try and do something. For example, vertical farming is a great way to increase the amount of food that's available, making better use of the technology and the space that we have available. And so vertical farming is potentially part of the solution alongside utilizing, crop stubble to generate fertilizer and fuel. Alongside, I think, things like, I think Prince Charles says about this, he's using, I don't know if this says anything about the wine, but he uses English white wine and cheese whey to power his Aston Martin. So, there are ways that we can do things differently that will make a difference. And that's what I think we have to individually look for, is ways that we can do things better, ways that we can do things differently that has a positive impact. I think one of the biggest opportunities is to reduce the amount of white collar workers who are commuting in city centres unnecessarily. A commitment that COP26 could make would be to say, well, actually, we are going to encourage people to work locally rather than travel in city centres across the globe. That will probably have a very positive impact on pollution, for example. It requires a change of mindset. It might require a change of approach over time. It will mean that local authorities have to look to alternative sources of income rather than just massive multinational offices in central cities. But those are the sort of things that we can change. The technology is there. Is the collective will there? And that is something that COP26 could adopt without saying, well, you've got to stop using fossil fuels, because that isn't practical at the moment. Or you've got to start running all your vehicles electric, because there isn't even enough electric to power what we do need. So we need to look at practical solutions, things we can do that make a difference. And I would suggest ceasing city centre centric commuting for white collar workers. That's an obvious one that can be done. Those of us that have worked in, remote working, remote collaboration services and tools for the last 15, 20 years would say, well, we could have done this 15 years ago. Why are we still living with this micromanager approach of bringing everybody into the office and chaining them to a desk? To see controversially.
Yes, Mike, in fact, you have raised very important points. In fact, what you're trying to say is that there is a lot of space for innovation, and that is why the Earth Shot Award has selected this called Takachar, and I think there are 14 others apart from this company. And I think there are a lot of scope. Just to tell you that in India, something remarkable is happening. The government has set up their target to go electric by 2030, 100%. And because of that, the fuel prices are going up. I don't know why they are going up, but they are going up. And there will be a point in India where running a gasoline engine, which is either petrol or a diesel car, will be totally inefficient. So, and there are a lot of advantages given to people who are willing to shift electric option. So I think they have taken an approach where they are making things more difficult for an internal combustion engine, and on the other side, they are giving subsidy electric vehicle. But I think you have raised a very important point about innovation. You think innovation will help us? Like, for example, you mentioned that the white collar workers should stay at home. However, it is not very interesting to stay at home and work. So there has to be some sort of innovation to create a virtual office environment so that you feel like a office, really real office. So do you think that there is a need for?
Yeah, I do. I think there's innovation there as well. I don't think we're necessarily just talking about work from home. I did say local work. So what I'm thinking there is, rather than you commuting from southern Delhi to northern Delhi for your work, maybe you should work in a local southern Delhi office for 3 days a week. Or maybe you work from home for 2 days a week and a local office for 3 days a week, and you get together with your other colleagues on a face-to-face once a month. I'm not suggesting everybody wants or can work from home. However, some people could work from home, some people could work from a local office. And this actually is where innovative local authorities would say, well, actually, you know what, we're going to repurpose that multinational office into a local work office. And people can collect there, they can do their work there, they can have their lunch there, they can eat, drink, share facilities, resources there. They can even maybe have shared recycling bins so that they can, make good use of waste-free living. So I think there are innovations that we can do everywhere. And I do think it's about us not having a Luddite mindset. It's not about us saying, oh, well, we can't do this. We haven't done this in the past. It doesn't work. It does work. It's just that we need to adapt to probably a better quality of life. So instead of spending, 2.5, 3 hours a day commuting from southern Delhi to northern Delhi, we spend half an hour commuting and reclaim 2 to 3 hours per day for actual quality of life or doing extra work or hitting our objectives, whether they be personal health or business.
I think it was a very interesting conversation, Mike. In fact, you brought up a couple of very important points. Number one was there is a need for understanding, and I think probably if you have a global laws for people who are polluting or unknowingly, that would be the best solution in short term. Number two is there's no point in going back to the rock age. We can innovate and change our ways to, for example, not to use plastic, uh, rely on biomass engines,
Yep.
rely on electric cars, so things like that. And there could be thousand other innovations that are possible. So I think there's a time where we can actually innovate and change our situation with regard to pollution. And I think the third most important point is, I think kudos to people like Prince William for starting these encouragement based plans. I think we need more people to get associated with this award, or maybe start a new one. People with who are influential, have the money, they can actually encourage the people, rest of the people, for better innovation, so that helps the mankind. Uh, any last thoughts you have to add?
Yeah, only I completely agree with you on that, and I think we've got to be innovative. We've got to be practical. We've got to move away from ideological, impossible goals. I mean, for example, my personal view is electric vehicles are not ready or up to par to be able to do things. The change of boiler systems in the UK is another one where it's totally impractical to expect people to spend £15,000 or whatever it is to put in this new sort of more efficient boiler system. A lot of properties aren't going to be able to do it. Maybe new ones will. There are new innovations coming through that means that won't be necessary. I don't personally think electric vehicles are going to be the route. I think maybe running our cars on recycled waste could be the way forward. There are other ways to look at things other than the immediate solutions we see around us today. Things like the Earthshot, that is great. It would be great to see maybe car manufacturers coming up with a form of prize saying, how can we run vehicles in a more efficient manner, making use of all those ideas, keep protecting nature, keeping the air clean, ensuring that we're not optimizing the use of resources, and we're tackling climate. Why not have an automobile prize running alongside globally for organizations to come up with innovations in that space? So I think there's plenty of scope. It's the limit of people's imaginations and the mentality of thinking, well, we haven't done it that way before. We've got to use this new innovation, which isn't necessarily very practical, and make sure everybody has it. That isn't the route either. It's got to be practical. It's got to be affordable. It's got to be sustainable, and it's got to help us improve the world for the good of all, and pretty quick.
As usual, Mike, it is a great pleasure to talk to you. Your voice and advices, a great value. Thank you so much for joining us, and catch you in